Our purpose at WE is to change the dismal statistics of our people, particularly Māori and Pacifica people. We do this through helping small and medium-sized businesses to thrive. Our businesses need our help. So many have felt the pressures of lockdown and are facing challenges that they've never faced before. Challenges that are impacting their livelihoods. That is why we're bringing you this series to share stories of the people behind our businesses, their successes, their failures, their challenges, and their triumphs.
If you are already in business, we hope you will be inspired. Perhaps someone will share one piece of gold that makes a difference in your business. If you've been thinking about starting a business, we hope that you will be motivated to start your own business venture.
We hope that by sharing these stories, we can help small businesses on the road to recovery all across New Zealand, Australia, and the Pacific.
So grab your cup of tea and whakarongo mai. Kia ora te whānau, no mai, haere mai, welcome to our cup of tea. What I love about doing these is I get to meet some really cool people and share some really awesome stories. And today we have another Wahine Māori who also has been on a Leadership New Zealand journey, just like I have. So I'm really excited to introduce you to her today. It's Kaye-Maree Dunn from Making Everything Achievable and Aho. Thanks so much for joining us today, Kaye-Maree.
Oh, kia ora koutou, kia ora te whānau o WE, and everyone that's tuned in today. Thank you for welcoming me. And what a mean video. That was really nice to hear what is your why as WE and what you're trying to achieve. So it was real beautiful.
Thank you. It took us a little bit of time to really understand what it was, our true purpose. And so we did quite a bit of work on it. But now that we know, it's actually really inspiring for us and our teams. Now it's like, okay, now we know what we're doing. Let's just gung-ho, let's just do it. And I know that you're doing very similar stuff too. So tell us a little bit about who you are before we get into what it is exactly that you do.
Oh, kia ora tātou katoa, ngā mihi kaatu ki a koutou, I te taha o tōku pāpā hu uri tēnei no te rarawa, ngā te manawa, ngā puhi, ngā te kahu, tōku māmai he uri ia no ngā te mahanga, ngai tā manuhiri me ngā te kahunganu, ko Kaye-Maree Dunn tōku ingoa. So really pleased to be here. I am a Dunn from the north. Actually, that's my Irish side. But I'm also a Dāgavo, a Takuira, and also a Moringa from Te Hikutu. And my mother is from a small place called Whatawhata, Ngāti Mahanga. And then her father was a pohatu from Ngai Tā Manuhiri. But I grew up in a place called Friendly Fielding. And I always talk about my hometown of Friendly Fielding because that's kind of where I learnt my tips and tricks and I guess the steps of hustling, which has helped set me up in figuring out what to do with the rest of my life, which was a journey including getting into business.
So tell us then, who were you before you went into business? So you've talked a little bit about Friendly Fielding and the hustle. So tell us a little bit more about that and yeah, your journey before you decided, yep, business is the road that I'm going to take.
Really good question. I guess growing up in Fielding, it was a small town. It's known for two things. One, it is considered one of the most beautiful towns in New Zealand. I think it's consistently won New Zealand's tidiest town or prettiest town or something like that. And then we're also well known for having the largest stockyard in the Southern Hemisphere. And thirdly, of course, we've got a really large motor track, right? And so those were kind of the ways that Fielding was known to the broader world. But what wasn't really well known was the story of the people there, Ngāti Kaupata, and the relationships of, I guess, first encounter between Māori and the settler communities and what that looked like. And I would say for the majority of my life growing up in Fielding, which was 18 years, there was a real invisibility of our people, our culture, not because we weren't doing it on the marae, but primarily because I would say Fielding had a lot of growing up to do. So it was a small town, it's rural, primary focus is agriculture, And then on the periphery, and then also contained within the community, were a lot of whānau Māori. And the majority of trades or mahi there, or the major employer, was the freezing works. So my stepfather that raised me was a freezing worker. He was also a unionist in the freezing works. And then my mother, who raised me, my whāngai mum, she was a stay-at-home mother. And both of their focus for me was education. And I was a bit of a mischief, curious, always asking lots of questions. I got myself into quite a bit of trouble at high school, so I'm lucky I made it to 7th form. But I made some decisions that probably made school life a bit harder for me. But I guess I was trying to find my identity and figure out what mattered. But I couldn't wait to get out of fielding. And so I ran away to Victoria University and spent 10 years trying to complete my 3-year degree. And primarily because I was faffing around and being an activist and also partying a lot and trying to find out what was my career path going to be. And then alongside finishing off my degree, and during that time, I spent 10 years in the public sector, working in government across a range of different agencies, and had a son who's now 15. And during that period of working for government, really recognizing some of the limitations and challenges that our people were facing. And during my tenure at Child, Youth and Family, I found a book which talked about this thing called social entrepreneurship. And I had no idea what that was. I was like, so I read the book, and it was a summary of findings from a hui that the Department of Labour had held around different amazing community-based initiatives that were doing great work and also trying to be sustainable. And after I read that, I'd come across projects in there like earth building in a Pōtiki. At that time, Rikirangi Gage from Te Whānau Apanui had launched, which at that time was pretty groundbreaking, a partnership with Cisco, which was to enable marae to become, to have access to free telephone calls and to be able to keep the communities connected. This was well before the internet was where it was today. And anyway, the point is after that, I realized I'm a social entrepreneur. I found a term for myself, which was really exciting. And then I guess I felt that, hey, look, I know how to kind of navigate government. It should be easy enough for me to get into business. And so in 2003, I had to move back to Fielding to raise my son. He was born in 2004. And my son's father at the time was struggling to find mahi. He was a musician. And I had just come out of, working in government, etc. So we decided we'd set up our first company. And our first company was called Kata Kata Limited. Kata Kata means to laugh. And our tagline was to connect art, business, and community. And so basically we did what we loved the most. I loved to organise events. My partner at that time loved to play music. So we mushed the two things together and we started to run events. And so we ran an event called Kapu Te Reo in Fielding, celebrating Te Reo Māori. We ran big events around Matariki. And then, I still kind of thought that by doing that, I was figuring out business. But actually, there were so many things I didn't know. There's so many things I didn't know.
There are always so many things we don't know when we go into business, I think. You only know what you know. But, we have this strong drive or push towards being a business and wanting to help people, that we kind of just think, yes, let's just get in and do it, and we'll just figure it out as we go along.
Yeah. And I guess things like, I've been learning about business for a long time. So I had done so many programs. I did the Te Wānanga Aotearoa small business program, learning about business plans. I didn't even really know when I first started what the role of an accountant was. I definitely didn't understand tax. We as a whānau invested in setting up our own office in Wellington City across the road from Te Papa. There used to be a markets called the Wellington Markets, and we set up a space there. And my whānau had painted this office space. I brought all this, got all this equipment. I brought it all on tick. I got I was trying to set up a gallery, and I tell the story that I had this whole space set up. I was sitting in my desk, my flash desk, and I had like my printer and my laptop and my cell phones, and then everything was all kind of there set up. And then I realized, fuck, how am I going to pay the rent? What am I going to do? I had no idea. And we had to just kind of figure things out. And it's taken me 10 years to figure things out. You know, it's not been a simple journey, probably 10 plus years. I'd probably say 18 years, actually, to be honest. And trying to understand how to, well, what does it mean to be in business, and what is the responsibilities of it? And thankfully, I mean, my business was always my side hustle. And I was in a career that enabled me to grow and build and strengthen my capabilities. So I had some leadership training, but to bring that across into running your own business, like truly running your own business, I think that really, really I haven't really reached my stride in that space until this year. If I'm being honest, when you're moving from yourself and then actually employing or engaging other whānau to work with you to grow your business and build your business, that's been a big transition for us this year. So 2004, 2010, I set up MEA Limited, Making Everything Achievable, where we started to look at how can we use our skills in Māori and community development, strategy, training, capacity building, and create this platform called MEA. And then MEA was the platform which contracted me to do work. And so in that platform, I've worked for a range of different organisations. But for the last 7 years, and I finished up last year, I was working with Māori Women's Development Inc. and helping other wahine Māori grow their business and help set up coaching and financial capability programs. But in November, I made a decision that, you know, it's time for me to stop being an advisor for other people's businesses and actually have courage and take on, you know, step into business myself. Yeah. And so 2 years ago, I founded a company called Aho, NZ Limited. That's with my co-founder, Ben Taidea. And that's a passion mahi where we've set up a platform for whānau to upload their whakapapa and create their own whānau archives. And we've built training around that. It's taken 2 years of a lot of hard graft. It's a completely different sector. It's in the tech world. And again, I knew very little about technology, but I knew what we were trying to achieve, which was to use technology to help create opportunities for our whānau and to protect our mātauranga, our knowledge. And then when COVID hit this year, we really had to create a very strong vehicle to support our iwi and taitokero. So we've been doing quite a bit of work in supporting our 11 tribes around communications, public relations, branding, telling stories. So yeah, it's been a busy time.
Now, one of the problems that we face with busy times and trying to help so many people is the effect that it can have on a hauora. And I know that we were talking a little bit about this before we went live. So share a little bit about your journey there and the things that you've learned and what some of the things are that you're putting into place for yourself and your own hauora.
Yeah, I think that's a really big question, or it's really simple. And I think that self-care is something that I've tended to struggle with because I've put everything else first. You know, my mahi, my responsibilities, all of the things have been the big list. And then I've kind of put Kaye-Maree Dunn at the end. And I guess you can't really do your greatest work when we're struggling to keep our energy levels up or to feel really good in our body, and also to make sure that we are producing great work because our minds are good. So I guess for me, really dedicating time to training, adequate sleep, good nutrition, and just being really, really dedicated to that has really helped me actually be more effective in delivering high quality mahi. It's still a work in progress. I always think, hey, I'm a work in progress, but it's something that I have neglected and I'm now in my 40s now. We just turned 40 last week, and therefore I don't have the gift of youth on my side, and therefore I have to make some quite swift decisions for my hauora as a business owner as well. But I also know it can be a real struggle, unless you make a decision and stick to it.
There seems to be something about turning 40. It's like my body went, you're 40, because I turned 40 this year too. It's like my body went, oh, you're 40 now. I'm going to make things a whole lot harder for you. You can't eat all of the things that you used to eat and do all of the things that you used to do. And I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's also a great time for, I listened to Brené Brown the other day, and she opened up with this cool statement, which was, she's reflected on the last decade, and now she's thinking, what's this next decade between 40 and 50? What's it's going to look like for me? And I think often we can get caught up in, oh, I'm older, oh, my life, or it's like, fuck that, this is going to be like the best decade of my whole life. Like, what will it look like if I'm in the greatest shape of my life? And what is it going to look like when my business is pumping? And what does it look like when I actually make some really big decisions to change up the way that I've done things for the last decade? I'd say 20s is the time for discovery. 30s is your time for trying to figure shit out. By the time you're 40, I'm not saying everyone figures their shit out, but I reckon that by the time you're 40, you can't really lean into excuses about, oh, I didn't know, or lean into ignorance. It's like, just don't have that luxury. Yeah, and so that's that part. I think the other part too is, because I've been so heavily involved in amplifying opportunity or supporting others or in the growth of others, likewise, I also needed to apply to self. And so this year, I've been really lucky that I've had some great mentorship. So big mihi to my bro Travis O'Keefe from Te Whare Huka Huka, who's been a really great mentor to me and supporting me in implementing systems and approaches to running my business in a way that makes life a lot easier. Leaning into the skills and capabilities of my brother, Mita Dunn, and his amazing capabilities of working with teams. And then I'm really lucky that, we've got a core team of 11 and making everything achievable, and all of their gifts, talents, and skills. And I guess my brother reminded me that MEA is a waka. Well, really, we're a whare waka, so we are the host of many waka, and on our waka are different projects or different kaupapa. But the business is no longer Kaye-Maree Dunn. We are merely kaitiaki, or I won't say it's guardians, but we are kaitiaki of kaupapa that we are privileged to work with others, whether or not that's our iwi partners or whānau or different land trusts. And so part of my tidying up of late has been to take a real, honest, true assessment of where I'm at right now and what we need to put in place to move forward into the future.
And it's a great thing to do. And I like what you said about what does this next decade look like and how can it be the best, and having a team around you that can help you to do that, and utilizing all of their talents and their skill sets, because you're right, you can't do it on your own, or you can try, but you won't be very successful. And you can do far more when you have a group of people on the waka steering in the right direction, in the same direction. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I guess, what I feel business does for me really is you're constantly dealing with the voice in your head, which is always saying, you're not good enough. You're not good enough. You are inadequate. You've got these things that aren't quite working, right? And so either A, you allow that voice to be really loud, or you have to quieten it down. And I think the best way to quieten that voice down is by taking action, but good, decisive, intentional action. And that's something that I have to contend with often, because when you're so used to doing things yourself and achieving outcomes, I'm a type A personality, so I like outcomes, hard out. And so when things aren't quite working in the way that you hope as a business owner, you've got to take a lot of that on board And I think sometimes we take on too much. And so having mirrors or reflectors of people, trusted people that will call you out in a loving way. But you need that honest ear. And I think that's been really valuable to me in this journey of growth, because it's been a big growth, massive, personally.
How do you stop yourself from listening to that noise and giving up? Because you can get to the stage where you think, oh my gosh, this hasn't gone right, this hasn't gone as planned. That voice in your head tells you that you're not good enough. And sometimes you just think, is this worth it? Am I the right person to lead this? Should I get somebody else to do this? This is a good co-papa, but does this need a better leader? Like, that's some of the things that I sometimes think. How do you stop? How do you quieten that down and continue to take action?
I think I've had to realize I'm actually not the best person for all jobs. That's been a big one, right? And so I think there's three things. The first one is I keep coming back to the honest assessment about where we're at, and recognizing strengths and weaknesses. There are things that I know that I'm really, really good at, and there are other things that I'm totally shit at. And therefore, I really believe hire your weaknesses. It's my number one tip for anybody in business, is hire your weaknesses. Don't fuck around trying to, waste your energy on stuff that you're just not good at and try and be good at it. It's just a waste of time. Get somebody that's good at it and get them to do their job. That's taken me a long time to figure out. That's one. The second one has been that systems, really good systems, mean that anybody should be able to take on the mahi, right? If you can set a strong direction, a clear direction, and a clear pathway, and people know what to do and what their expectations are, then you can get there a lot faster. And I think one of the things that I've really learned is I have a style and an approach to doing my work that is not the same for everybody else. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? That's a thing. People can't read my mind and they don't think and do things like me. Yeah, so wow, that was a really big awakening. But so therefore everybody has a different approach. And so how do we maximize those different approaches to get the better outcome? And I think the third one is ego. It's the big thing about being in business too, is that your ego is always on parade. Your inner chatter, our hopes and aspirations for something beyond ourselves, but often who keeps our ego in check, and how do we do that if we're not conscious to be able to do that ourselves? So this is where I believe having a group of or a trusted person or a coach or somebody that's actually going to give you a different perspective, because you get caught up in stuff and be like, oh, I'm fucking shit at all these things or whatever, and it's not really true. You might be not good at some things, but sometimes you need somebody to remind you that actually you need to stay focused. I think the other thing which stopped me from I think it's okay to kind of cry and crawl up into a ball sometimes. I think that's okay. It's healthy. If you don't do that, then, I question what's going on, when you're just feeling overwhelmed with stuff. But I do feel that service to others and community responsibility or responsibility to others is a real big motivator, that when people trust you to help them get from point A to point B or point A to Z, and they've given you permission or they've given us permission to help them do that, then it's incumbent upon us to do the very best job possible. And therefore my well-being, my mental well-being, the capability of my team, quality assurance, and not everything's perfect. Not everything has been perfect either, but we always have to keep focused on continuous improvement and just doing better. Just keep doing better.
I agree. And I like some of that stuff that you said too. And it is really important, I think, to have someone who can give you a different perspective, because you can wallow and feel a particular way. And sometimes someone else can just come along and just change that perspective for you. And also, your comment about crying, I think that that's really important too, as long as we just don't stay there too long. It's like, cool. I've had my cry, I've wallowed, and I've, felt like the victim and all that sort of stuff. Now it's ready to pick myself up and keep moving.
Yep, for sure.
What are some of the other challenges that you've faced in business, and how have you overcome them?
Well, I would say probably the biggest looming thing over my head for a very long time was to understand my finances and to really take charge and control of my finances. And I needed help to do that. So I have nothing but the utmost love and respect for Fiona Wilson from Orangaputia, who got up in my system, right? So, you talk a lot of stuff, but she actually got up in my banking system. She got up in my IR3, my IR, and she tidied it. And she does it in such a loving way, without cracking the whip. She cracks the whip by reflecting that, hey, there are some tweaks that you might need to make. Yeah. So as a result of that, the team, I now have a finance team. They have developed full financial policies and procedures. We now have a system for managing finances, which is awesome. And that's broader. That's kind of moving beyond how I was managing my cash books prior to growth. So that's been a big challenge that I've overcome by hiring in my weaknesses and working in partnership with others that are much smarter than me and helping me do my work. The other part is, I've asked for help. So, we've got support in finance, we've got support in HR. We also have activated support around marketing and communications. I've got a web team that are doing all of our design. And then, of course, we've got a team of 11 that bring all their gifts and energies. And that's a lot, considering where I started and where we are today. So we're constantly growing. And the work is never finished. It's always, okay, there's another 50 things to do.
It seems a bit like that. It's like, I thought we're done with that. Nope, we've got more to do. There's still more to do. There's always more to do.
Yeah.
And I don't think that you're alone around the taxes and the putia of your business, because a lot of business owners are not accountants. They don't go into business to be accountants or even, marketing and, HR. We don't do that. We go into business because it's something we're passionate about. So it makes sense to bring on board somebody who loves to do that stuff, who's going to do it a whole lot quicker than you are because they enjoy it, they understand it. And it can be such a time waster if you're trying to sit there and figure it out for yourself, whereas you could be going out and making more money for your business or spending more time looking after yourself and your family.
Yeah, for sure. I think be in your happy place and stay there, but grow, always grow. Like it's important, I think, far too often, especially with the businesses that I have worked with, often kind of leave it up to the accountant to do stuff and you tell me what to do. I think it's a responsibility for us as business owners that you must be all over your shit. Like there are no shortcuts. And I have definitely tried, there's smart cuts, but there are no shortcuts. And therefore, if there is an area that is a blind spot or a shadow that you are not dealing with, it will bite you in the ass. So you have to be brave and courageous and deal with it full on, even if it's painful. It's painful, man. It's painful recognizing what you aren't doing really well. And it's painful trying to, sometimes asking for help. But, I am so grateful that we have such a great team, because with that team, we're able to serve more. And that's actually what the end was, is that I realized I had reached the capacity of what I could achieve as an individual by myself. I actually needed to have a whole whānau come on board, the mea waka, for us to be able to be of greater service to our people.
Yeah, that's so true. So Kaye-Maree, before we finish up for the session, is there one last tip or something else that you'd like to leave those people that are listening today?
Well, 3 things. We have an amazing Facebook group in Taitokero called Tautoko Taitokero. So if you haven't yet joined, do, especially if you're an uri or a descendant of the North. But there are also other tautoko pages nationally. I think keep an eye out on the Māori economy. It's not a sleeping taniwha anymore. We are in full flight. or at least full motion. And so it's exciting what's going to be happening over the next 3 years and what we're going to be able to achieve as a result of everything that we've learned from COVID and who we are going to become to emerge more awesome. So that's the second piece. And I think the third one is have a go, just have a go. Don't try and be perfect. Don't try and get everything all lined up exactly as it needs to be before you actually have a go at getting into business, because it's not as hard as you might think. Sometimes we imagine that things are more harder than what they really are. So keep it really simple, work to your strengths, pull a team in to help you get to where you need to go, and know that there's lots and lots of support available if you just reach your hand out and say, awhina mai, help me, and you'd be surprised what might come as a result.
Absolutely. Good tips. How do people get in touch with you if they want to connect with you?
Well, I'm kind of all over the shop on a regular, so definitely through our Tautoko Tautokero page, you can find me, or you can find me on Facebook. I'd say you could find me on LinkedIn, but actually my LinkedIn page was hacked, and actually I've kind of enjoyed having a bit of a break from that space. But also, if you're interested in learning more about Aho, our whakapapa repository, my email is kaye@ahau.io or io. And just feel free to get in touch with me through the WE network as well, because I'm really looking forward to collaborating with the whānau from WE to see how we can help amplify and support whānau Māori to access the kind of financial tools and skills to help them grow personally and in their business as well.
Awesome. We're looking forward to that too. All right, whānau. Well, thank you so much, Kaye-Maree, again for having a cup of tea with me. And whānau, I will see you again on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Mā te wā, whānau.